Hey, Silver here. It's been so long since you've last properly seen me, but I'm back and better than ever. Silverwolf's buffs are here on the CE server, and she has become one of the best supports in the game just like that. Today we'll be checking out her buffs in detail one by one, examining how much better they made her, and then talking about what to do with her now. So what builds do we go, who does she synergize with, and more. Like and subscribe and share if this video helps you out, and let's begin. Let's start with her skill. First off, we got a massive base chance increase from 85% to 120%. In EHR requirements, this is equivalent to going from 97% EHR needed all the way down to only 39%. That's over a main stat saved, and we'll see this trend going forward on saving EHR needs. Now, the implant was thankfully also fixed. This was an idea many people have had for a while, and it seems it came true. She will add a weakness of an on-field ally target's type to the enemy she chooses, but she will prioritize the element of the first ally in your lineup. So like the Lushaka said, it will depend on your character lineup. But being able to guarantee this is an astronomical buff to quality of life on Silverwolf for most units in the game. This will have slight anti-synergy with units that want to take attacks, like Maide wants to be in the middle 2 slots. But you don't need him in that first slot necessarily. Maide can use Sunday and or Le Watcher. Blade can use Hyacinth and or Bronya. Yunli can use Robin, etc. If they're in the first slot, your aggro-seeking DPS can still benefit from the implant. What's also nice about this implant is if Silverwolf is in the first slot, you can guarantee quantum weakness. This means you can abuse the quantum set on a DPS alongside her own Death Shred. But implanting the main DPS's element would be stronger if possible. The quantum set domain sucks to farm, and the weakness implant only works on one target, so in AoE the set wouldn't be that massive, but it's still cool. To add on to the weakness fix, they added parts of her old trace passives to this skill. Straight up, thank god. So instead of having a trace passive dedicated to a measly 3% all type res, they just added it straight up to the skill. And they also removed the weakness implant duration buff from the A4 and just added that straight up to the skill. So later, we'll see that she got new traces. And she got a final buff to her weakness implant, but in her talent. When an enemy with an implanted weakness is killed, it will transfer to another enemy on the field without an implanted weakness, prioritizing elites and bosses. This is fantastic to help downtime between her skills, as you can now, for example, focus down one elite and then send your damage onto the next elite right after. The weakness moving will also move the res reduction debuff respective of the implant. If the enemy that has the weakness transferred to them already has the weakness you implanted, it will however completely change it into a brand new implant, which I find funny. So her skill is saved. What about her ultimate? Well, again, we go up to a 120% base chance instead of 100%. The EHR guarantee breakpoint drops from 67% to the same 39%, which is lovely. But then the real source, Silverwolf's ultimate, is now fully AoE. That means you get pre-bugs of 45% death shred onto all enemies, equivalent to a 1.31 times damage amp. No more Pella comparisons. But not only did they make the Death Shred AoE, they also kept in the single target multiplier. 380% attack to a single target was decent, but to all targets, it's hitting above erudition levels. Now, of course, she cannot go full damage as she will want to apply debuffs and be fast, but it means alongside EHR needs being reduced, she can actually be built and work as a sub-DPS support. A final note on this ult is that her toughness values were reduced to match normal AoE ults. Continuing with the EHR reductions, her talent got a buff to 100% base chance, so if you want to guarantee the important stuff you want 39% EHR, but if you have some extra up to 67%, you're still getting value. But then the bugs were also buffed, well, the death reduction one was. Before we had 8% on the bug, 45% on the ult for 53% death shred total. Now it is 12% for a combined death shred of 57% or a 1.44 times AoE damage amp. With the resolution light cone, this goes to 73% shred, a 1.64 times damage amp, one of the strongest AoE amps we have right now. Anyways, with Cypher's light cone, if you manage to get it, we go all the way up to 81% shred for a 1.76 times damage amp, fully AoE. You just need to apply the ultimate, so it's not permanent from the get-go like aura buffs, but the trade-off is its high power. Her A2 passive's bugs also got the same base chance buff to 100% like her talent, so the maximum EHR goal on Silverwolf is 67%, very easily obtained with a main stat or a light cone. Her old A4 was added to her new skill innately, so she got a brand new passive, and this changes everything. First, an immediate 20 energy at the start of a battle. Alongside a basic or skill, an energy rope and planar, This is a first turn ultimate which she previously could not do. This is a very powerful buff to the team's first rotation. That's not all though. She will also regen 5 energy at the start of her turn like some Harmony units do. And this will create some amazing energy rotations we'll see later. But just know that at E0 you no longer need tutorial, but you can use it for an even faster rotation. And with her E1 staying the same, it gets pretty bonkers. And since her old A6 was also added to her skill innately, the new one is the following. For every 10% EHR she has, she gets 10% attack up to 50%. So now the annoying EHR stat not only maximizes debuff chance, but actually gives her a little damage buff too. With this and the Kafka changes, I feel like they might regret this stat. Finally, for players with higher investment, Silverwolf did get 2 Eidolons changed. Since her E2 before was to allow for lower EHR needs on herself, and that is no longer an issue, well, they gave her a new one. First off, you'll get a 20% permanent vulnerability onto enemies, a free 1.2 times damage amp in a vacuum, but in most cases it'll be lower. But then, when enemy targets receive attacks, Silverwolf implants them with a bug. That first just looks like some consistency for the death bug, but it has some insane Acheron battery potential. Would I pull 3 copies of her just to help a 2.x DPS? I wouldn't, but I will tell you that it is a very powerful boost to debuff frequency and thus ultimates for Acheron. With Tribi spamming follow-ups, Hyacinth spamming attacks, you get a serious amount of ultimates on her. Her E4 also got fixed to now work with her AoE ultimate, so you get the big extra multipliers on all enemies now. And those are her entire kit changes. She has better energy regeneration and thus better ult uptime. You get a better first team rotation now thanks to her first turn ult. You have way more consistency on her skill and thus way more reliability as a damage amper. And of course, you get way more power in AoE thanks to the ultimate buff. Her EHR needs got drastically reduced, and she gets some self buffs, so now she even does some damage for your team. We love to see it. But also a change that isn't technically noted down since it's to do with light cones, but because her ultimate generation is way better now, she can run a debuffing light cone rather than tutorial, which increases her amp even more. So you might say, oh, she only got plus 4% death shred, but in reality, she can now run light cones that give 16 to 24%. Anyways, in a team sim I did from before and after buffs, Silverwolf's update in an Acheron team gave a team damage increase of 45% on average. This is because of her upgraded amp as well as new AoE amplification. If you're looking at a single target DPS, her buffs will be comparatively weaker because the big part was the AoE ult, but she's still got a decent increase in power and massive consistency buffs. So what do we do with buffed Silverwolf? Before, we ran a full speed debuffing beast, well, not beast I guess, but she went fast with effect hit rate. Now we will retain the speed, drop the effect hit rate, and add some damage. But she has new rotations too, and the possibility of going full DPS, so for this guide, we'll be tackling build sets rather than what I usually do. The first option you can go for is the classic debuff as Silverwolf. You want to be fast, have a debuffing based light cone, but now it's so much stronger. Her best light cones will be Cypher's Light Cone, Resolution Shines, the new Battle Pass Nihility Cone, and the classic tutorial. In pure damage amp, the order would be Cypher, Battle Pass S5 and Resolution, Battle Pass S1, Tutorial. This is because we can hit the 3-turn ultimate without tutorial now, the extra ults only affect Acheron ult generation marginally. However, there is a 2-turn ult rotation on tutorial with the buffs. A skill and a basic, so an SP neutral rather than positive rotation, alongside an energy rope and a planar, can net you a 2-turn ultimate. I would only recommend this in an Acheron or maybe Face Shout or the Herder team if you want to run her there, but the thing is, it really has to make some crazy ultimate breakpoints for them. An ult every 2 turns rather than 3 turns is not a huge difference maker when you think about it, so I'd stick to the damage amp light cones. At E1 you can even go for a 1-turn ult rotation. She could do this before, but it had to be set up correctly. Now she can do it all alone, and it needs tutorial again. And if you do have E1, I would recommend this setup for battery teams if she can specifically use the SP. You can get external energy technically and use a basic, but it will probably still be quite SP intensive for the team. On all of these builds, you'd opt for the Eagle set, especially the faster your ult rotation. But at a 3-turn rotation, you can also just go 2p speed combos. For planars, you need a 5% energy planar, so Lushaka or Penacony for boosting the carry further, Von Quack if you have nothing else. You'd go EHR or crit chest depending on your light cone or subsets, speed boots always, damage or attack orb, and then energy rope for sure. If going sustainers, you can opt for HP main stats on the chest and orb, sacrificing damage for safety. You would want to get to 160 speed at least, 170 with Cypher's Cone, and then speed can also vary on what you want to do with the Eagle set. For example, at 167 speed with the 1 turn ult rotation, you can hit 3 turns in the first cycle, useful for battering some DPS even further. For EHR, you'd want 50 to 67%. 67% is the max for guaranteeing everything, but at 50% you've already got a good amount. And then you can build for crit, but it will be a very low amount due to her speed needs. I'd say you can aim for something like a 60 to 100 crit ratio. If you want to go for a bit more offensive power whilst retaining debuffing power, you can swap out the 2p speed or eagle set. I would only do this on the 3 turn ult rotation, and even then her new damage isn't going to be godly enough that swapping to a damage set would improve your team that much. But for damage sets you can go for Pioneer, Scholar, but also Quantum set as always, especially with her very high and now AoE Death Shred. And speaking of damage, at E1 you can even go for a DPS silverwolf now, because even without tutorial or energy rope, at E1 you can just hit a 2 turn rotation for free. Use skill and basic with your E1 ult and hit it with a kill or other external energy. If you don't get a kill, you can always skill again instead. And with a lower speed threshold, you can opt into way more crit stats than usual. Your Relics should just be the Quantum set if you can farm it with inert Cell Soto planars. For light cones, you can also use DPS cones now instead. Acheron's cone notably synergizes really well with her ult-based damage profile. You can even use Silverwolf's signature if you want, and Goodnight Sleepwell and Boundless Choreo are fine 4-star cones too. So really, go for what you want and what your team wants. I think in general, she should just be built as a debuffer, but in 3.4 she is one that is much more consistent and has much better damage than before. And so where can we use her? Well, let's see how she fares versus everyone's current favorite universal amper. Silverwolf's debuff power with resolution like cone S5 versus an enemy that is already weak to your DPS will be 73% death shred and 13% res reduction. That would give you a single target amp of 1.85 times and an AoE amp of 1.64 times. Very strong already. But as we know, her true power is when the enemy isn't weak to your DPS and she can implant their weakness and 20% extra res reduction. This gave her some of the craziest amp in the game even before her buffs, but now the Death Shred is AoE, and the implant is always consistent. With 73% Death Shred and 33% res reduction versus an enemy with 20% res to your DPS's type, you're looking at a single target damage increase of 2.3 times, which is kind of insane. If you have Cypher's Light Cone, this increases to nearly 2.5 times. And remember, once you kill that enemy, the weakness will transfer to other enemies alongside the res reduction, so it's not like her massive single target amp is even ruined that much with more enemies. So, for comparison's sake, Triby's amp versus a 20% res enemy is 1.69 times on all targets. So a tiny bit better in AoE than Silverwolf's with resolution, but way weaker in single target. And the damage Triby provides, well, Silverwolf isn't a slacker anymore. Triby will still do much more in AoE, but the lower the target scenario, the less it matters. In 1 to 2 targets, E0 Silverwolf is generally just a better E0 Triby, especially if versus off-element fights. Triby will lose a lot of energy potential and damage when into 1 to 2 targets, and that also loses effectiveness for Dance 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 and can even lose you ult uptime. I mean, in raw single target damage amp, E0 Silverwolf with Cypher's Light Cone is on par with E1 Triby. And an E0 Silverwolf with resolution versus a non-weak enemy has stronger single target damage amp than E1 Triby. As for 3+ targets, she can replace Triby if you don't have her or can't use her, just like Rollmate could already, but Triby will start popping off the more targets in the fight. Don't get it twisted, Triby is still top tier and is still the god in PF right now, with a disgusting E1 to help her further. So anyways, just like Cypher, nearly anywhere you can plop a Triby or Cypher, you can now plop Silverwolf, with her best use case being lower target fights but especially non-elemental weak fights. In Apocalyptic Shadow, she will also be a fantastic help to breaking the boss with her high single target toughness damage and implant reliability. Synergies like the Herta will prefer Triby's high frequency attacks, but otherwise the stronger amp from the Wolf is really nice to have. And being able to say that about a 1.1 character is just insane, they really cooked with her. So Casterus RMC Silverwolf can be a thing. Yes, you'll have lower HP than with Triby, but unless you've tuned your team around your HP thresholds, it won't necessarily affect Dragon count. You can also drop some Silverwolf damage and go HP chest, HP orb. My Day Sunday Silverwolf can also be a thing, and as said earlier, Sunday is imaginary too and can go in that first slot for the weakness implant. Using Bronya instead, well, the Watcher can work there then if you have him. That's the beauty of her new weakness implant. And of course, the biggest question people are asking is her status with Acheron. Well, at E0 Acheron, you can now use 2 of the cat, the wolf, or the fox as you wish. Acheron is a zookeeper after all. If you have all three for some reason, I would prefer Silverwolf Cypher into lower targets, and Jiaocho can be slotted in Pure Fiction over Silverwolf. At E2 Acheron, E0 Silverwolf is now a very strong contender for the Nihility slot, but she doesn't generate as many stacks as an E0 Cypher with the new Battle Pass cone or her SIG, and she doesn't generate as much as Jiao Cho. But that does change at E1 Silverwolf if you can afford the SP, and it gets even better at E2. At E1 Silverwolf, you now get 2 debuffs a turn, just like Cypher, if opting for the 1-turn ult strategy, but she is much more SP intensive than the basic spamming cat or the skill basic rotation of the fox. Cypher would also have better AoE amp than Silverwolf if she's on tutorial, so you'd need lower targets for the wolf to shine. At E2 Silverwolf, her amp goes up, and she can do 2 debuffs a turn with the tutorial spam. But she can then also make a support like Tribby apply a debuff every single follow-up and basic now. At E2, she should just be Acheron's best Nihility by a margin due to the extra ults you'll get, provided you bring a suitable team to abuse the Eidolon. Whether you want to go all the way to E2 for an older DPS is up to you, but do remember that Acheron consumes 1 SP a turn, and so would a 1-turn ult Silverwolf if you don't get external energy, so be careful. Let me know what you think of these massive buffs and where you plan on using your Silverwolf if you have her. I hope this video helps, and I'll see you soon for the next buffed character guide. Thanks for watching, thanks to my awesome YouTube members, and have a Guoba day.